Hi everyone, Stephanie Adams here today with you with Beginning Counselor, Building Your Ideal Internship. Here to talk to you about dealing with imposter syndrome. The question of, am I really supposed to be here? Now this is one of my favorite topics to cover because I think it's an important one and a lot of us go through it. I know I went through imposter syndrome in a way when I was building my ideal internship. Even though I had a great internship experience, I still had that worry of, am I going to mess somebody up? Am I not supposed to be here? So I wanted to address that with you today, and you might be able to the people I'm wanting to talk to if you're feeling like you have something about yourself, especially related to counseling, that you worry is just not good enough to do this job. Does that sound familiar? Do you ever feel like, maybe I'm just not cut out for this? In other words, you have an area of vulnerability. So, kind of a secret part of yourself that feels like you aren't really supposed to be here. You probably think that no one else can see it, and if they saw it, they would just know that it's the truth, that you really aren't supposed to be here. In fact, you may even feel like you're getting away with something by playing this role. Therefore, the term imposter, but you feel like you're about to be caught out. And like I said, eventually you feel like you will be caught out and you will be found out as this, fake person who isn't good enough to do this. And then who knows what'll happen, but it'll be terrible. So, that secret part, the vulnerability, is the source of your imposter syndrome. And think about it, you can't be caught out, you can't be called out as an imposter if you believe you're supposed to be there. If you know that you are there for a reason, that you're supposed to do this job, you're not an imposter anymore. So, in order to help imposter syndrome, we have to show you that you're supposed to be here. So, that's where we need to start with the question of why do you think you're not supposed to be here? What's wrong? Why aren't you supposed to be here? Why are you the imposter? So let's look at some common sources of imposter syndrome, some of the reasons you might feel this way. When I talk to interns with imposter syndrome, these are some of the things I hear. I'm not good enough to be here, to be an intern, to be a trainee counselor, because I'm either too young or too old. Perhaps you're 25 and you feel like you have nothing to say to 50 or 60-year-old clients and that they don't trust you because you're too young. Perhaps you feel like you're an older client or an older counselor and that you worry that your younger clients won't relate to you or that your younger counselor friends will somehow have something you don't. You might also feel like you're not good enough because you don't have as much experience as someone else. Maybe you look at a student next to you and just say, hey, you know what? They worked as, a child advocate before volunteering, or, they used to have this background in nursing, and you're like, wow, this person's really going to be a good counselor, but how can I be a good counselor? I don't have that kind of experience. You can definitely also worry that you're not good enough because you have your own emotional problems. Like, how can I help someone when I've had problems myself? And similarly, you might think I have relationship problems of my own. I sometimes hear this with clients who are going to be in a relationship counselor and they're, single or divorced, and they worry that, their clients will question them personally because of the difference in their situation. And honestly, when you have a version of imposter syndrome, you can almost fill in the blank. You can say, I have a whatever reason because the imposter syndrome creates reasons to feel like you're not worthy of being here. But here's where we get tripped up. We get tripped up because we assume these feelings we have about our incapabilities are the truth. Now, feelings are real, they matter. I'm not saying that's not the case, but they aren't necessarily the truth. We can have a strong feeling about something and the reality be totally different. And think about it this way, if it was a client who was saying something about this, like this about themselves, what would you say to them? Would you say, I understand that that's a very overwhelming feeling of unworthiness, but let's look at what you have to contribute? Would you turn it around on them or would you just accept it? And if you wouldn't accept it in your clients, why would you accept it in yourself? So when you're trying to get through this imposter syndrome and get healthy again, you need to start by asking yourself, where does this belief come from? Now, maybe it's my cognitive behavioral background, but I believe beliefs have a lot of power. So what belief do you have about yourself and your inability related to the sources that we just discussed or another source that you came up with? Where does this belief come from? Think about it. Where does it start? What was your first memory of it? Is it recent? Was it old? Once you have that picture in mind, you can think about what was the basis of this belief. And perhaps, you could come up with a belief and realize, hey, my parents always told me I was only good for this role, and I wasn't good enough to do something else. I wasn't smart enough. And then you look at that and go, well, the basis of that is that my parents told me that. But you can look at it and go, but my parents had some emotional problems of their own. So maybe we can't always trust them to be accurate observers. And when you kind of have that idea of where the belief came from and the basis of the belief, you can ask yourself, what is the cause? Does the causal relationship in my head coordinate with reality? Meaning, does the belief I have about my abilities actually have a relationship with reality, or is it completely unrelated? Like in the example we just said, your parents' opinions about you growing up may or may not correlate with your actual abilities now. So think about that. And if for some reason you come up with a source of a problem you have and you decide that it is a problem, when the answer is yes, that you do have some kind of a problem that makes you unsuitable for a counseling role, then you can deal with it. You can seek consultation and support for the situation at hand and make sure that you are healthy and someone else has evaluated you before you treat clients again. But it's not a end all be all that you are forever imperfect for this role. It's a time limited thing to help you get back to a place of helping others if you are genuinely experiencing something that makes you unsuitable. And of course, you do want to rehabilitate and separate yourself from clients while that's going on, using the judgment of other professionals that you trust that can help you evaluate whether or not you might need to take a step back for a limited time. There may also be less drastic measures than completely separating. I immediately recall a time during my internship when I had a death of someone very close to me, and I just simply asked my supervisor to give me some space from any referrals related to grief for a time while it was still very fresh for me. Now, my existing clients that had a grief issue I dealt with, but I kind of put some boundaries up there, and it helped me get back to a healthier place where I could deal with that without having some kind of transference for myself. So there's levels, there's layers there that you can work with. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. And as I believe will be more common when the answer to this is no, that there is no causal relationship and your imposter syndrome is based in something else, I want you to think about releasing yourself. It doesn't have to be something you carry with you. Once you recognize it and you see it, just think about owning your inabilities. We've all got them. You're going to be really good at some things and not so great at others. For example, there you might be really great at listening and empathy, but then you get, your clients' stories of their dates mixed up in their heads of when things happened, and you have to keep notes on your timeline. That's a kind of a silly example, but just showing you that you're going to have some things you do well and some things you don't. And there is some excitement to be had about the implications of your ability to grow. You get to kind of relate to your clients when you're thinking about your own growth and their growth. You can understand them deeper when you are identifying with that yourself. And the fact that you are growing now means that you're going to be even better later. The fact that you're starting where you are now means you get to see yourself grow and achieve what you want later on down the line. Lean on your strengths. Do what you do well. That's not being weak or minimizing your inabilities. It's just saying, hey, this is strategy. I'm going to do more of what I do well, and what I don't do well, I'm going to try to grow in, and I'm going to try to help get others to help me with, because I know I can't be perfect at everything. You know what? Maybe you decide you just don't have a lot of skills as a marriage counselor, and after your training, you just go, hey, you know what? I'm going to refer to my friend who I know is excellent at this, and that's okay. Most of all, give yourself permission to be human. You are just as human as your clients. Just because you're in a position where you have to serve them and advise them doesn't mean you don't get to be flawed and incapable just like them. We are all on a level playing field, and giving yourself permission to be human, it implicitly gives them the ability to be human too. They will pick up on that. They will see that it's okay. And that can make a bigger difference than anything you say. So I want you to think about that and think about releasing yourself. Think about all the ways we came up with here to grow and to really just serve your clients better, and release yourself from the shame or guilt you've had over what you think you couldn't do before. Come connect with other human interns just like you at beginningcounselor.com. Just click the link on our homepage to be invited to join our free community on Facebook. It's a place where you can share your stories and get encouragement, tips, and resources. So don't struggle with imposter syndrome or anything else alone any longer. Instead, join us at Beginning Counselor, Building Your Ideal Internship. Can't wait to see you there.